have a fursona. If you are not indigenous, you do not have a spirit animal. You have a fursona. Use the correct terms. It will not hurt you. But actually, my spirit animal is an elephant. No, bitch. Your fursona is an elephant. And that's okay, because it is about whatever makes you happy and representing you. And you can go as wild with it. If you want to mix animals, you can. If you want to make it basic, you can. If you want to give it the craziest colors, you can. If you say, my fursona is an elephant and it's lime green with purple polka dots, you can. It exists. If you can go as basic as you want, you say, I want to be a cow. I want to be a dog. I want to be an otter. You can. You can go as extreme as you want. You can say, I want to be a stick bug. You can, because it is a representation of you, but it is not a spirit animal. It is a fursona. And here's the thing. Furries, chill. Some of the chillest people I've ever met. Like 9 times out of 10, they are so chill. Like if I had a nickel for every time I've met a chill fursona and like a furry, I'd have like 35 cents.
Gringos and foreigners come to Colombia, and a lot of them have no knowledge of the long-standing civil war that has gone on here for decades. Colombia has one of the longest consecutively running civil wars in the entire planet. It started in the 60s and still goes on today in 2025, with certain regions of the country still being war zones. Here in Medellin in the early 2000s, many of the barrios were affected by this war. And there's a place here in La Comuna 13 that 99% of tourists miss that tells a story of the past of violence here in the city. So I want to go show y'all that right now. So you see right behind me are pictures of people. This is right by the cemetery La America. These are people, many of them were murdered due to the armed conflict in the early 2000s, but some of them were murdered as recently as 2020 and 2021. And many of them, their bodies were not found, so they were not able to be buried. You see this one says desaparecido. But y'all can tell some of these pictures are older. Some of them are more recent. They put flowers for him. This is the entrance to El Cementerio de la America. They actually wanted to destroy this cemetery, but the local people did not allow it. In 2020 was when they planned to destroy it. But the people got together, said, nah, it is a sacred place for us. So, and all around this cemetery, you'll see, I'll show y'all, there's paintings that tell stories. So here we have 2 faces of people who are buried here. These kids are young. Look, this one says Morocho, which is his nickname. It says a 14-year-old boy killed in the Guadarrama sector. This one is Eremi Mejia. It says he was disappeared on December 18th of 2002. The pain of an entire family, the cracks of the soul are illnesses of the body. So they write a poem here to commemorate him. So here in Latin America, a lot of graveyards are like this, where the bodies are placed into drawers. So you see this whole graveyard is filled with drawers and plaques and paintings. Look right here, there's a mother who's grieving her son and she's crying in her bed, and her son is watching her from above and he's saying this to her. Quiero decirte, madre, que yo camino a tu lado, aunque no me ves, soy consuelo y alivio porque estoy en tu recuerdo. Al final del camino, madre, te estaré esperando para abrazarte tan fuerte para que no me sueltes nunca más. Esa es carta de un hijo ausente a su madre, asesinado, desaparecido. And look at this, man. So what I'm about to show you right now is probably the darkest and the most troubling part of this cemetery. Most disturbing, I'd say. Last time I was here, I came with a kid who's from La Comuna 13, and he explained to me the reason why this area is locked is because a lot of the people who are here are unidentified or have no family members to claim them. That's why they got the lock on it. And if you look back there, there's a passage. According to him, back there, they keep the ashes of the people who have been cremated, and plenty of people whose identities were never known. And you can feel the vibe here, man. It's an eerie vibe. And in this whole cemetery, even though we're in La Comuna 13, which is a very urban, busy sector of the city, there's a silence here that you can feel. Here it is, El Cementerio La America. So y'all could come check it out when you come here. Look at the paintings. There's other paintings that I didn't get to show y'all because there's a lot. And y'all could understand and get some more insight into the history of what happened here in Medellin, in La Comuna 13.
America's first recipe was deep frying Native Americans. Settlers literally wrote in journals about cutting natives' bodies into chunks, dropping them in hot oil and eating them. Entire towns filled with the smell of roasted flesh. That's the real founding story that they don't put in the history books. And that's the reason why they're taking out this stuff out of the history books and out of schools. That the ancestors of these people are cannibals. In the book, The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, they've been trying to ban this book for a reason. If you see the orange shopping cart down below, that means it's still on sale.
So here's how to protect yourself from neurotypicals for the sake of your sanity. So neurotypicals don't respond to direct communication for some fucking reason, and apparently we're the weird ones. So if they've done something that's like really obviously to you disrespectful and you don't understand why they would treat you like that when you've done nothing to deserve it, don't communicate with them, because that kind of shows weakness to neurotypicals. Like, they see that as you being like easy to take advantage of, because why are you communicating with someone that's so obviously deliberately disrespected you? I don't know why they act like that, but they seem to have like this weird hierarchy of power and control dynamics in their day-to-day life that they've like imagined, which to me sounds like a symptom of mental illness. But no, apparently we're the mentally ill ones. So we're the neurodivergent ones with the conditions, apparently. So instead of letting them know how they hurt you and asking them to not do that again because they don't respect that and they won't listen to you, just give them the silent treatment. And if they try and force you to talk to them, which neurotypicals will do, and they won't ask you what's wrong or if they've done something most of the time, they'll just sort of like be overly nice to try and compensate for their own guilt. Be really passive aggressive and answer as little as possible. So when they're like, oh hey, like I actually I just popped to the shop and I thought you might like this, so I got one for you as well, just be like, oh thanks. Like, look confused. Don't be overly gracious, because then they feel like the power's back in their hands. This is what I'm saying about their like imagined hierarchy of power and control and politics. Avoid them as much as possible. Be really dramatic about how upsetting this has been to you. Like, retreat to your room. Look visibly like theatrically melancholy when you're in their presence. And then they will feel like you're calling them out on their behaviour, and they don't like to feel guilty about the things that they are literally doing, even though they should feel guilty anyway without having to physically see the effects of it.
Just a reminder that female and juvenile safety is actually enforced in all animal groups except for humans. Yeah. A new male lion tries to take over a pride. If the females decide that he is unsafe to the juveniles, they kill him. In elephant herds, if a male is considered to be too aggressive or rogue, they will run him out of the group or kill him. Male bottlenose dolphins have actually been documented trying to coerce females into sex, and so the female bottlenose dolphins would form protective coalitions and either kill the male or run him out. Bonobo monkeys, which are literally known to have sex under all occasions, will actually run out any males that are deemed to be too aggressive or too dominant. And the women are the ones who do it. And over time, if a male bonobo is seen having multiple overly aggressive sexual encounters, they actually lose status in the tribe amongst the males and the females until eventually they're kicked out. In wolf packs, if a male is too aggressive, they get kicked out and are left on their own, or they're killed. What does this tell us? That male dominance and aggression is actually not natural, and nor is it accepted. Female and juvenile safety are prioritized across all animal groups, except us.
In today's edition of How the American Food System is Trying to Unalive Us All. What the fuck? Okay, tell me if anyone else relates to this. I don't drink enough water. Like, ever. Apparently I'm supposed to be chugging literal gallons of water every single day, but I just can't. It doesn't taste good to me. It is what it is. So of course I'm super dehydrated. But then I chug water and I end up having to pee 5 minutes later, like without fail, and I'm still dehydrated. So I try drinking electrolyte packets and somehow I end up more dehydrated. Because apparently that's not just what you need when you're dehydrated, that's what you need if you're sweating a lot and losing very specific minerals. But otherwise, all of the chemicals and the sugar and everything that your body has to process in those things can actually make you more dehydrated, not less. But now I find out there's a reason that the water isn't hydrating us. Did you guys know that we need fulvic acid and humic acid and trace minerals, not just electrolytes, in our water in order for it to like properly hydrate our cells? Because I didn't. And guess where the fuck we get fulvic acid? Yes, the soil, the water. If our soil is rich in fulvic acid, then we get it through our feet, we get it through our food, we get it through our water. It soaks in everywhere. If our soil is dead, like most of the agricultural soil in the US is, then we are simply not getting that fulvic acid from any source in our diets. But not only is our soil stripped, Our water is stripped because we add so many contaminants with our industrial processes that we then have to filter out everything that's good in the water, and we end up with dead water. Please, only drink electrolyte packets when you are working out. And the rest of the time, drink your water dirty. My water looks like this at all times because it has fulvic acid, humic acid, and the trace minerals that my body actually needs. And because of this, I have so much more energy. My skin is actually glowing, and I genuinely just feel like an entirely different person. Like I didn't know water was supposed to do this. I will show you the exact one I use, if I can find it. This is fulvic acid, humic acid, and minerals. And this is not just like your basic industrial stuff that most people are selling. This is mined from Utah in like prehistoric mines. So this is like previously untouched by human hands, the top purity that you could possibly get. And this bottle's literally like 20 bucks. I have had it for over 3 months, and you can see that it is still like halfway full. So this stuff is like crazy affordable for what it is, and I will link it in here somewhere if you want to check it out for yourself.
Things that other countries are doing to limit harm from fundamentalist religion. In Japan, threatening a child with hell is considered psychological abuse. France and Scandinavian countries put limits on your ability to homeschool, that you can't just homeschool because you're a parent, because it hurts all of us, the entire society, if that child is not educated. And so you actually have to prove that you are an educator, that you actually have the educational knowledge in multiple subjects to be able to be your child's teacher. Some countries like Canada and France have revoked tax-exempt status from religions like Jehovah's Witnesses because of the harm that they're causing within their religion. So if your religion has human rights abuses or does things like mental manipulation or shunning, then you could lose your tax-exempt status through the government. Some countries like India, Algeria, Bhutan, Myanmar have strict rules against proselytizing in ways that are coercive. And this is because the British would come and they would start to feed people, but only if they converted. And they would start to uproot other countries by essentially converting everyone through coercive tactics, which would lead to Hindu and Christian clashes that could get very violent. France again leading the way in financial transparency, requiring religious institutions to publicly disclose their donations and their spending and their foreign funding. Many countries criminalize hate speech even when done under a religious cover. So for example, Germany bans religious leaders from homophobia even when they're operating under their religion. Nepal and India trying to outlaw child marriage, whereas in the United States we're trying to get child marriage going again. France again, compulsory teaching on evolution and sexuality in schools regardless of parental religious objections, because they cite that it's important that the entire culture be educated on sexuality and science or else it hurts everyone. Ireland especially, because they had to go through this, and Australia too, have launched national inquiries into church sexual abuse and removed the legal protections that once shielded the clergy when it comes to SA. So things that countries are doing to limit religious fundamentalism is just like a mix of education and financial transparency, criminal law, child protection, separating church and state, oversight of clergy, keeping the schools secular, making sure that there's financial accountability, and then criminalizing any kind of coercion done in the name of religion. But the most effective levers, if we were to rank these, is one, child protection laws. You can't hide behind the church when you are causing harm to children. That is first and foremost. And then second would be secular mandatory education. When you've got those in place, you've got a lot. And if you could add a third one, it'd be financial transparency. But it's got to be you can't hide behind churches when you're hurting children. This is going to be very hard to do in America because Christianity, especially since the 80s and 90s, has aligned with, the political right, and that's going to make every religious battle a political battle. So how do we get people to reduce their religiosity so that every religious debate isn't political? You have to have social safety nets in place. You have to make people feel really safe. You have to not have a huge gap between the rich and the poor. And if you can get that, then people feel safe enough to be able to not be so fundamentalist in their religion. And then you could put these measures in place without it being a huge, battle. So where we're stuck is we can't even get the things in place that reduce religiosity so that we could put in these healthy measures, because we can't even address things like a social safety net because all of that's being removed by the Christian right now. And then the instability actually creates more religiosity. And so, it's not looking good for the United States to be able to put in these things that other secular countries have been able to do to protect harm, specifically for children.
Hey y'all, my name is Bree. I have been dealing with kids for 10 years professionally. I have a whole ebook on daycare with a daycare guide in it, questions you should ask the daycare, how to tour for a daycare. As a person who worked in a daycare, the things you need to look out for as a parent, the questions you need to ask, signs of abuse, all that. So this is just something I want to say to y'all. My last video, I was talking about how predators escalate the behavior that they show you. And the reason why they do this is just to see if you're going to be comfortable with them being a predator around you, essentially. And if you are, then you're a predator too. And in that video, I mentioned that they do things that are suggestive, but not outwardly predatory, meaning that to somebody else, it might be innocent, but to somebody else, it might be weird. You know what I'm saying? For example, predators will always try to find time to be alone with your child. Anybody that is constantly trying to have time alone with your child is a huge red flag. Oh, well, why can't you just drop them off to me? Why do you gotta stay? Why you gotta stay with me at the house with them? Why can't you just leave them? Why can't I just spend alone time with them? Red flag. Anybody that is constantly trying to have excuses to touch on children, constantly tickling kids that aren't ticklish. My aunt had a husband that always was tickling me. I'm not ticklish. And I was 14. So anybody constantly trying to have excuses to tickle your child, trying to touch your child, always trying to pick your child up, always trying to put their child on your lap. Another thing is people that are overly helpful in ways that they don't need to be. No one should be volunteering and excited to change a dirty diaper. That's odd. And last but not least, anybody that tries to make you the bad guy is the parent. So, oh, why won't you just let them have the candy? Don't be like that. Uncle Jerry would have gave you the candy. They're trying to demonize you as the parent and build that trust with that child, so that way it's them against you. And that turns into your child keeping secrets with this person, because they feel like, oh, this person is going to give me what I want and my mom isn't. Red flag. If y'all want more, put them in the comments below. If y'all have things that y'all feel like are kind of and you want my opinion on it, put them in the comments below. I'd be happy to help.
If half of the country has digestive issues, why hasn't there been more research done on transdermal application of medications? Doctors say we need more research on whether or not the skin absorbs things. Really? It's your largest organ. Things go in, things come out. It's not woo, it's science, it's biology. That's why magnesium spray calms your restless legs. That's why a lavender and chamomile body butter can calm your nervous system. That's why a coffee eye cream can increase circulation and help with your puffy eyes in the morning. I mean, because there's not a big study done by Big Pharma, people say, well, we didn't know if it works. You're joking, right? We've always known. It's ancestral knowledge. It's something we've always done. It's lived experience. It's common sense. There it is. That's the issue. Common sense ain't common no more. Right? I don't know. The skin drinks what you feed it. Period. End of story. You don't like cooking with ginger, but you like the benefits of ginger? Ginger body butter. But make sure it's good ginger. You don't want to otter pop a lavender stem? Get a lavender body butter. Your skin isn't just a wrapper holding your organs in place. It's your largest one. I can't stress it enough how underrated topical transdermal application is. Serve your body from the outside in. You can do that too. Your stomach needs a break. It already has problems.
Hello, I'm a lesbian and I downloaded heterosexual Tinder to ask straight men one question. What is your most controversial opinion? Here are some answers I received. What is your most controversial opinion? That you would look good on all fours. Someone tell Joel 25 that it's appropriate to have a conversation first. That you should sit on my face. Someone let Leo know as well that saying hi is always polite. And who's gonna tell Anthony that sex on the first date is not a must without consent? He doesn't particularly look like the consent type though, so Austin went crazy here. Finally, an actually controversial take, okay? What is your most controversial opinion? I like piss. I'm engaged in the conversation, at the very least. But also, I really like Gadiel for this one, okay? What's your most controversial opinion? What should I have an opinion about? He's willing to take criticism, ladies. Hit this guy up. His mind is open completely. And last but not least, we have James. I said, what's your most controversial opinion? He said, I like that question a lot. I would say of the one opinions would be that gold-digging chicks are the wife beaters for guys. It just does leave the marks to outside appearance. Amazing, James. I said, that's crazy, James. Doesn't seem like you have gold to dig. He said, oh yeah. Hear that, ladies? James has gold to dig. But be careful, we wouldn't want to wife beat him.
So you know how the Trump administration is holding all these press conferences and they're like, we're winning, we're bombing ships, we're threatening to go into another country, we're winning so much. Oh, look, this one brown-skinned person has a horrible track record, we're winning. And then MAGA supporters are like, oh my God, all this winning. They're not winning and they're pissed. So here's what Fox News doesn't want you to know. So companies in the United States are taking a huge hit. Let's just focus on BlackRock, okay? The big American finance giant. They just lost $17 billion. Why did they lose $17 billion? Because a giant Dutch pension fund withdrew their investment in BlackRock. Why? Why did they do that? Because BlackRock de-emphasized climate and social justice initiatives to cater to Trump's agenda. And then this pissed off the Trump administration. Morgan Stanley, another financial giant, just undertook a huge study. They pulled a shit ton of individual investors in U.S. companies, and 80% of them said that they want companies like BlackRock and any other companies they choose to invest in to have climate change initiatives. They believe climate change is real. They're upset at all these companies capitulating to this dumbass administration. They believe in climate change. 80% of them. So they're putting their own pressure on companies, withdrawing money, investing elsewhere in companies that have the balls to stand up to this administration. Trump, their administration is not happy. And then here's a big one. Trump is so pissed off, he even posted about it. A Norway wealth fund worth $2 trillion just sold their stake in Caterpillar. U.S. equipment manufacturer Caterpillar. Yep. Just sold all of their shares. Why? Because Israel purchases Caterpillar equipment to undertake the big G word. Yeah, Norway divested in a bunch of Israel banks and investments as well for the same reason. This pissed off MAGA so much that Lindsey Graham just went on a tirade. We're going to put even more tariffs on you, Norway, and we're going to revoke, all of your visas to come here and everything like that. They are piss. Meanwhile, other investors are having this conversation across the board. Fox News is not letting you know about this. They have seen a titanic shift of other countries investing in American markets, meaning they're not. They're pulling out. They're not investing in American companies. The U.S. exceptionalism has been single-handedly destroyed by this administration. And other, especially dictator countries are more than happy to step in and fill the gap, and they are. And these investors, U.S. investors, are saying it's not going to return because European stocks, Hong Kong stocks, all these stocks are soaring and they love it. And now everybody's buying in to other countries' investments and they're completely bypassing the United States. And the final message that investors are passing around to each other is we have no one who's going to help us. We have to save ourselves. That's a lot of winning.
If Christian women only knew how hard it was for men to stay pure, they wouldn't dress the way they did at the gym.
Let's read some more comments and prepare to be mad. When I was 5 years old, I was told that I needed to put on a bra under my baptismal clothing because the water might make my ripples hard and cause the pastor to stumble. 5. The men at my church always told me that I had wonderful birthing hips. I was 7 years old when I was told this for the first time. One time at church, a tampon fell out of my bag, and my 60-year-old male teacher told me that he couldn't look at me afterwards, knowing that something had been inside of me. I was 16 years old. When I was 15 years old, my youth pastor, who was creepy with all of the preteen girls, told me that God made me fat so that I wouldn't sleep around. My brother had a special teacher who would come to our home to help him prepare for college. My mom told me that I needed to change my pants because there was a little rip in it and it might seduce him. I was 6 years old. When I turned 21, I got my first pap smear, and my mom called on the way home and asked me how it went. I told her about the pap, and her reaction was to panic. After some back and forth and arguing, she said the disgusting line of, "Your husband should be the one to open you up." A guest pastor once told us that if you are dating someone for more than 6 months and you aren't engaged, then you must be putting out. I was 17 years old. Keep commenting your insane purity culture stories, and I will keep reading them.
Why do so many men not think coercion is grape? Simple. Because if they admitted it, they'd have to admit they've done it. I saw firsthand when I trained male officers how to investigate grape cases. The second coercion was brought up, their faces changed. The smirks, the shifting in their chairs, it was written all over them. They'd known they had coerced women into schmecks. See, men grow up thinking schmecks is something to chase, and women are something to convince. They call it persistence, I call it grape. And women get blamed for men's actions every time. Like how people say female officers must be desperate to sleep with inmates. Wrong. Most of those women are coerced. Inmates catch them doing something like dozing on post, then threaten, "I'll get you fired unless you give me what I want." That's not schmecks. That's coercion. That's grape. And men don't want to face it because if coercion counts as grape, then half their locker room stories are confessions. I'll be live at 11 a.m. Eastern. Join me because we're tearing the mask off this lie once and for all.
Another woman's success and confidence and visibility makes you feel uncomfortable, I really need you to sit down and ask yourself why it's triggering you so badly. Because in this climate, we don't have the time for this anymore. If you're on the receiving end, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this, shrinking yourself won't actually protect you from somebody like that. I know. You could overcompensate. You can make yourself as small and as unthreatening as possible, but with somebody like that, it actually won't help because it was never about you. They are still going to project whatever narrative, whatever preconceptions they have already formed in their mind about you onto you. And if you don't already give them a reason to dislike you or nitpick you or criticize you, they will go out of their way to try and find something. This has nothing to do with you. These are just self-soothing tactics, mostly unconscious self-soothing tactics to make themselves feel comfortable. This is also heavily rooted in internalized misogyny. And I want to stress that anyone can be misogynistic, even other women. In fact, like even myself, I had to unpack a lot of like internalized misogyny. So you are probably not the exception. So when you're bright and you take up space and maybe you're very loud about your accomplishments, probably because you have worked your ass off to get to where you currently are, women like that tend to freak the fuck out because they haven't done the work. Most of the time, this is largely unconscious. Like they're not aware of why you are triggering them and why they're coping in this way. Women who haven't unpacked that internalized misogyny, seeing you be authentically yourself and not shrink yourself makes them realize that they also haven't given themselves the permission to be that. So they may resent that in you. And to make themselves feel more comfortable, again, it's like a coping mechanism, they will criticize and nitpick and devalue you and kind of like switch in their mind to be like, oh, actually, they're not even that great. They're not that great. Meanwhile, you're over here being like, I never thought I was that great. I was just being pretty honest about who I am and what I'm about, and things that I'm fucking proud of. I've been told I am too much. But was I too much, or was I just like smart, confident? I didn't minimize myself. I took up space. God forbid I'm conventionally attractive and somewhat neurodivergent. Really like the 7 deadly sins right there. And if me talking about myself that way made you feel uncomfortable, unpack why. The patriarchy tells us that there only can be one amazing woman in the room, and we're all in competition with each other. And really, I prefer to be in rooms where there are other smart, intelligent, creative, talented, skilled, beautiful women. I like feed off of the energy, and we bounce ideas off each other, and we start businesses, and we talk about experiences, and we learn, and we grow, and we connect, and I love it. We're not in competition unless you want to be. And if you do, it sounds like a personal fucking problem, and you need to fix it with love.
Okay, so you're watching Donald Trump's niece, and say what you just told me.
Okay, so she said that at some family dinner, he was like 5 or 6, and he was tormenting his little brother just horribly, and the little brother was just hysterical. Apparently this was one of Donald's favorite things to do, and the family got pissed off that he was like ruining their family dinner. So the dad picked up a bowl of mashed potatoes and just dumped them all over Donald's head, and everybody laughed. And apparently all the holiday meals in that family, somebody brings up that story, and it just humiliates Donald all over again, and he can't stand it. So Mary says, if we all start carrying potato flakes, like boxes of potatoes at our rallies and stuff, if it gets big enough and gets back to Donald, it will drive him insane.
Fucking potatoes, guys. Potatoes.
We've been lied to. We did tax the rich. We taxed them hard, actually, up to 94%. And no, it didn't kill the economy. It literally saved it. So why doesn't anyone talk about that? Because billionaires don't want you to know that it actually worked. Every time you talk about taxing the rich, there's always the people that say the same things. That's not fair. They'll just leave. They earned it. This won't fix anything. It'll just hurt jobs. But the truth is, we've already tested this. We taxed the rich hard, and it built the most prosperous era in US history. Here's exactly what happened. In the 1940s, President Franklin D. Roosevelt raised the top federal income tax to 94%. Yes, I know that number sounds crazy, so let me explain. That didn't mean that people were losing 94% of the income that they had earned. That's called a marginal tax rate, and it only applied to income above a certain threshold. In 1944, the 94% tax rate only applied to income above the $200,000 income threshold. So essentially like making, I don't know, $3.5 million today. So that means that you would pay the normal rate on the first couple million, and only the income above that would be taxed at this 94%. And I feel like that's the part that nobody ever really explains, and the billionaires count on that confusion to protect themselves. So what did this money pay for? It paid for the New Deal, including Social Security. It paid for massive public jobs programs during the Great Depression. It paid for all of World War II. It paid for the GI Bill, which sent 8 million veterans to college. It paid for the interstate highway system. It paid for the original versions of Medicare and Medicaid. It paid for public universities, hospitals, housing, and scientific research. And one-income households could actually afford a house, a car, and a vacation. And all of that? Yeah, all of that happened when the richest of Americans were paying between 82 and 94% on their highest income. And guess what? The economy fucking boomed. And then came the 1980s. Reagan slashed the top tax rate from 70% down to 20%. And what happened? Wages stopped growing, middle class started shrinking, the CEO pay exploded, billionaires hoarded record wealth, and income inequality has skyrocketed ever since. So no, this is not some coincidence. The second we stopped taxing the rich, everything started falling apart for the working people. So let's shut down the excuses one by one. But that's not fair. You know what's not fair? Is billionaires using things like public roads, public schools, courts, police, and workers, and then hiding their wealth in offshore accounts and shell companies, you know, to avoid paying taxes. They didn't get rich alone. They used a system that the rest of us paid for to get to where they were. But they'll leave the country. Nope, try again. The US taxes worldwide income. So even if they do move, they will still owe money. And when France France passed a wealth tax, fewer than 1% of rich people actually left. Cause be so fucking for real right now. Do you really think that these billionaires are gonna be giving up their Manhattan condos and their media empires over a 2% wealth tax? Let's be fucking serious. It'll hurt jobs though. The biggest job booms in American history from the 1940s to the 1970s all happened while the rich were taxed the most. Because back then it made more sense to invest in your workers rather than spending millions on stock buybacks. But it won't raise enough money. False again. A 2% wealth tax on people worth more than $50 million would raise around $3 trillion in 10 years. And if we also did things like, I don't know, taxing capital gain like income, closed estate tax loopholes, and remove the Social Security income cap, we could raise over $10 trillion without ever touching the middle class. Oh, and with that money, we could easily pay for things like, I don't know, universal childcare, tuition-free public college, canceling all student debt, national paid family leave, a real national housing strategy, fully funded Social Security and Medicare, public transportation upgrades, climate infrastructure, and real reparations programs. I don't know, all of that without raising taxes for real everyday working people, just by taxing the extremely wealthy people, you know, like we fucking used to do. And these billionaires would still have way more money than they could ever know what to do with or spend. So no, taxing the rich is not this new radical idea. This is how America used to work. It built the middle class, it won wars, and it gave millions of people real stability. And when we stopped, the system broke. Wages froze, prices soared, and the rich kept everything. So when they say we can't afford to tax the rich, what they really mean is we don't want to share. So I don't know about y'all, but I'm sick of sitting here fighting over breadcrumbs at the bottom of the table when somebody else is eating the entire feast. Fucking wake up, people.
So I watched the footage of the girl get murdered on the light rail in Charlotte last night. First of all, trigger warning. Do not watch that unless you are mentally prepared. I didn't seek out that content. My fiance saw the footage on Twitter/X where they post just horrific things. He was like, Nicole, this is really bad. Are you like prepared to see this? And honestly, I didn't want to see it. That is super traumatizing, like so scary. That's nightmare fuel. But I was like, this is really important for women to understand what people are capable of in order for us to make sure that we're aware of our surroundings to avoid those situations. And y'all, this man seemingly picked a random woman who sat in front of him on the rail in a baseball cap and a t-shirt, just like living her life. I don't know for sure, but like it seemed like she was just coming home from work and decided to jump and violently murder her on the light rail with other people there. And I'm pretty sure I've seen in some articles that this man was like incredibly mentally unwell, which fine, whatever, that's a different topic of conversation. But like, where are we safe? Where are women safe? Because when we dress the way that you want us to, we're not safe. When we go in public places during the right times with other people around us, we're not safe. And when I talked about the Charlotte Predator on here before, I felt like I gave us a lot of recommendations on like how to be aware of your surroundings, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what my recommendation is in a situation like that, because if it were me and I just sat down on public transportation, I would not expect, even in those parameters, to get stabbed. I wouldn't expect that. Y'all, there were other people there. Like, it wasn't the middle of the night walking home dead alone on the rail trail. Like, I can't even compute. Where are we safe? And what can we do about this?